Because like the last few years have been really challenging, really difficult. And there's many times where I have felt frustrated or sad or maybe even betrayed by God or people or whatever. And is my posture that I'm blessed?
Is it?
Because I'm mourning? Not always.
I'm just sitting back for the ride today. I heard you're the boss today. You're what's that called? We'll call you the HWIC.
What is that?
The head woman in charge.
Oh, okay. Yes, that would be me.
You are the HWIC.
Wouldn't it be funny though?
The WIC.
So like we discussed a couple days ago that or maybe it was yesterday. I don't know. We're all kinds of mixed up and behind because of one, Snowmageddon, two, our family getting COVID.
Oh, people might not know that. Yeah. So
oh my gosh, you guys.
Texas hit national news. Rogalski's moved to Texas. They have a once in a lifetime cold front come through. 7 degrees.
I think it was like less than 0 with the wind chill. And we lost power for several days.
Yep.
And in the middle of all of that, somehow we got COVID.
It was kind of fun, though. We got to see the community rally together. People brought over stuff, solar lights. People were cooking soup for each other.
Snowmageddon.
You had friends that made like loaves upon loaves of bread for people. Because the grocery
she's made like
stores,
70 loaves of bread for the neighborhood.
Yeah,
pretty sweet.
The grocery stores ran out of a lot of goods. Milk, bread, the staples. So the community rallied together.
Yeah. And then people have been taking really good care of us since we had COVID too. Yeah. Like just bringing meals, and that's been really sweet.
Yeah.
So yesterday we discussed.
On the COVID note though.
Okay.
I mean.
Don't even get started
I just don't want to brush over it though. But for those of you guys, I wouldn't have known that I had COVID until I lost my smell and my taste. I honestly thought I was just going through some sort of allergy season. It seems to be.
And your back was like really bothering you, which you have back issues.
Yeah.
So
when you add it all up,
it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. But for those of you guys that aren't sure, like, I will be honest with you, it went through our whole family. Some of us could have went through the entire COVID season or the COVID experience and not really known it. I think mostly because for me personally,
our whole family had different symptoms.
Yeah,
some of us had the same ones, but everybody had a different experience. Like Ben is the only one that got a fever.
Yeah, and it was just the one day.
And then you and Callista are the only ones that threw up.
One day. Yeah.
Sailor and I were the only ones that had like
a little cough.
And Callista had extreme nausea.
You guys had a cough too, though.
Sailor, Callista, and I have had a cough. Mm-hmm. And then I would say the fatigue hit Sailor and I the worst.
Right.
And then Roman had the worst pain in his butt cheeks for like.
Yeah, he had like nerve and muscular. He had like nerve and muscular pain.
He was like, "Why do my butt cheeks hurt so bad?" And then it happened. Yeah, and then it happened to Sailor too. Yeah. So we're like, I guess it's a COVID system or a COVID symptom, not symptom.
So how would you rate the overall?
And the brain fog. Oh, yeah. My Lanta.
Rate the overall experience. 1, let me ask you
scale of 1 to 10. How much did you love it?
No. So scale of 1 to 10. So we were trying to figure this out as a family, right? The flu hits you like a sledgehammer.
Which I've never had the flu.
All right, so I've had the flu. Many of our kids have had the flu. When the flu hits you, you know it. I mean, you're just you're out of commission.
I remember when you and all the kids got H1N1 and I did not. Yeah. Like, I actually don't get sick very often. Right. I don't know what that's about, but only a few times in my life can I remember being like really, really sick. Yeah. Like when I was 18, I got pneumonia and I was like very, very sick.
Yeah.
In bed for days. And then when we were in Haiti in 2017, I was in bed for like weeks because something hit me. And then this. But other than that, like I don't really get knocked out too easily.
Yeah.
But I would say,
10 being the worst sickness you've ever had, 1 being, not a big deal. Where would you throw your experience?
I would say that if it wasn't for the fatigue and the brain fog, pretty mild. Like if it was just like, because like even my cough and my like congestion is kind of like you could think you have a sinus infection or allergies, like significant allergies. What's been the hardest for me by a landslide is 1, the brain fog, but even more so is the fatigue. Yeah. Like I mean, we're going on 2 weeks and I'm exhausted still. Like I spent 5 days just unable to like do much more than lay around because I just was so tired.
Yeah.
So, I don't know that I'd put a number on it. I would say like there's this part of it where you're like, thankfully, like we lived through it. Obviously, there's some people that, it's a sensitive topic and it's taken, people's loved ones, including people that we know, their loved ones. So you don't want to minimize it. And at the same time, for people that are generally speaking healthy, on average, it is something that you can work through. But I would say it's like no joke. I mean, it's not something I'd like want to have again.
No, my only real point in bringing it up was probably two things. One, the uncertainty and unexpectedness of it. I think our minds can take it to some place because we haven't experienced it.
Yeah, when we were on day like 7, I was getting a little anxious because I was like, oh gosh, like we're making it through, but we know that people turn for the worse on day like 10, you know? So then I was a little bit nervous.
But more importantly for me is the spreading. Mm-hmm. If people are really concerned about spreading it and they're trying to take like a responsibility for spreading it, I would have been spreading it
without knowing it
during the whole time. I didn't know it because I didn't lose. Honest to goodness,
5 days
once
once
I talked to CDC or whatever, they base everything off your first symptoms, and my first symptoms were already
days before
I would have ever even known that I had COVID because I didn't have a single symptom that would have made me think, oh, I must have COVID right now.
Well, and
until I lost my smell and taste.
Yeah, and for me, I was feeling...
And all of you guys had the benefit of knowing I had it.
Well,
or at least had a positive test.
I was feeling really... Like, I started to have the sniffles, started to have, some congestion and a cough, but I was feeling really drained, and I really just chalked it up as, wow, we haven't had power for days.
Yeah.
I'm thoroughly worn out and, like, traumatized because of our life in general, and this is just bringing it out. So I would have thought it was just, like a little cold or something like that until you lost your sense of taste and smell. And by then, I started going downhill as far as like just exhaustion and all that. So
same. Same. I mean, whenever it hit, it was at the same time as we were without power and 40 degrees in our house. So, anybody was expecting to feel like
you're
crud anyways.
Sick. Yeah, for sure. Well, and so that put us behind like a couple of weeks. And thankfully we had bankrolled some podcasts with you
Joe
and Delagrave and John Reiner. And you had done Joey Weber like right before that.
Oh yeah, Joey Weber. He did a fabulous job. Yeah. If anybody wants to hear about missions trip to Haiti.
Yeah.
Joey Weber killed it.
So we were a little behind. So yesterday when Ben and I work together and kind of plan out, more so Ben, I'm just there to like, how can I help? But planning out like social media and posts and things like, what we're talking about on our podcast and kind of making sure it all kind of flows together. And normally we do that a week ahead, but we've been behind because of having no power and then, COVID or whatever. So yesterday when we were discussing like, what are we going to discuss today so that we can plan for everything that releases next week? I was like, hey, I feel like I have something I've been thinking a lot about and I'll just pick the topic this time, which sometimes I pick the topic and I'm just like, here, babe, you go plan it because you're really good at that.
That's usually the case.
You're good at that.
Well, I wouldn't even say I'm good at it.
I would say you're good at it.
It's what we're used to. So this one though, they wouldn't even give me an idea of what it was. So I'm literally sitting here still to this.
I didn't tell him because I knew like if I told you, you'd be like planning or something.
Well, I'm not. Well,
if I told you the topic, you would be like planning and then you take it over.
Okay.
So I kept you in the dark. So here, we'll just get after it.
Yeah,
so I've been thinking a lot the last few weeks about the idea of blessing and like what does that actually mean, right? Because people say frequently like, I'm so blessed, like I live a blessed life, let's live our best life, or they'll post something that's like #blessed or living my best life. And so I've just been thinking about it a lot, kind of in the sphere of, obviously I'm doing this business thing with Pomifera, and I see it a lot in this industry, and I'm sure it's probably in other ones too. I just haven't been in them. Like we've been in ministry for a long time, so it's, like that's just different all in itself. But I've seen a lot of people who talk about and post about, the successes that they're having and God blessing it.
Right. Yep.
And so it's honestly like it's made me think a lot about what is like true blessing, right? And like what does it mean? Like, so for me, I'm out of almost 10,000 people, I'm number 12 in sales. Right. Some people would say like God's really blessing my business. Yeah. God's really blessing me.
Sure.
well, what about the people who are putting in just as much effort as I am and they're not having the same sales? Is God blessing them? Is he not? So it's just like, I've just been thinking a lot about that. And it's led me to really question, like, what does it really mean to be blessed?
All right. So can I ask for a question real quick?
Mm-hmm.
So I am 100% tracking.
I'm my notes.
I'm
Full
100%.
transparency.
I'm 100% tracking with you, and I'm really excited to see where this topic goes.
Do I have a booger?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Is your intention going to be to guard the word in like how we use it?
Nope.
Find the meaning of it, or more so like the comparison of
nothing.
Okay.
I don't necessarily have an end goal in mind.
Okay.
I don't necessarily have
It's just a topic.
We know everything about this topic.
Okay.
I think like our experience makes me question things like this because we have people who we love and adore and treasure more than most people, and they have nothing in the physical, right? If we weren't providing them groceries, they wouldn't eat, right? So are they blessed? Are they not blessed? What does it mean to be blessed? What does it mean to live your best life, right? Because what is the scripture that says like, if you want to live your life, you'll lose your life. What is it? Give it to me.
Well, it's basically what you just said, though. He who basically it's about forfeiting your own life to truly have life. Basically, sacrificing. Jesus sacrificed himself so that we could have life, and vice versa. So picking up our own cross. It's like he who wants to gain his life must first lose his life.
Yes. And so for me, like this is one of the things that I've been thinking so much about because, we take it as, and we speak a lot as a culture about things like increase means blessed.
Sure.
And gain means I'm living my life.
Yes.
And I am not here to say, I'm not trying to say, people shouldn't say that. I'm not here to say,
the goal is not to judge.
No. And I'm genuinely not, I don't have a problem with people saying that. It's just me thinking a lot about it.
Yes.
And it's me even checking my own self because, I think part of the tension for me is if I'm out there saying God's blessing what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. But then there's somebody on my team who I really care about and I want to see them have success and they're working hard too and it's not happening, then are they going to think they're not blessed? Mm-hmm. Or what if our friends and our family in Haiti see what I'm saying and they're like, wait a minute, yeah, they are blessed. What is actual blessing and what is actually living your best life? And just that whole idea of living purposefully and that being how you actually are living your best life, right? So anyways, that's what so my question to you, I have a few. I wrote them down because, guys, I'm a paper person, which here, look, I have notes. This drives Joe nuts.
It doesn't drive me nuts. It's just funny that she has to use paper.
Well,
because it's prevented meetings from happening.
It has. Because, listen, one time, okay, probably more than once, but one time that I can recall, we were on a road trip and we were
a long road trip. We had a lot of time.
13 hours, I think it was. No, it was Wisconsin, Nebraska. So it wasn't that long. It was 8 hours. And Joe wanted to plan out our life, you guys. He wanted to plan out our life. And I'm like, I cannot plan out our life without paper. Yeah. And Joe was like, you have a phone in your hands. There's notes in there. I'm like, yeah, there is notes in there, but I have to put stuff on paper before I can put them in the notes. Yeah. I have to. It's just my thing. So I have my trusty notes on my paper. So, blessed life.
Yeah.
Best life. What does that even mean? And so when I started thinking about that, I was like, what does the Bible say about being blessed? Mm-hmm. And the thing that was resounding to me was the Beatitudes, mm-hmm. because it literally spells out blessed is this, blessed this, blessed this. So I thought we could break it down. I don't know if you have any thoughts. I'll pull that up. But do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, so
I know it's so broad.
No,
so maybe should I ask you like a more specific question?
Well, let me give you just a freestyle
and remember,
thought.
we're not judging
Yeah,
anyone.
let me give you a freestyle thought.
Please hear me on that, y'all. If you are one, especially like in this business that I'm in, because that's where I'm seeing this a lot, and it's made me really like question and think through like how what I think and what
Let me address that
yeah.
specifically, because that's, as you're talking, those are the things that I think of. And it goes back, for me, it goes back to culture. And the reason why I say that is because the way you're saying it is the way I think of it too. The comparison, right? Like when someone says that something is a blessing to them, we right away are like, well, then what is somebody thinking isn't a blessing for them? This hit me the hardest abroad. Because when you're amongst the poor, you really want to guard those things, right? Like, how do I want to speak about my blessing? Because you don't want someone else to think they're not blessed because they don't have.
In the physical, yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Let's just take the Haitian culture. What taught me, though, is a genuine excitement and a genuine rejoicing over seeing someone else blessed, if we want to call it blessed. I don't know what it is about me personally. I'm not going to judge anyone, but it is hard, if I'm going to be honest, for me to be really excited about other people's blessings because I compare it then to my lack of blessing. So,
but that's a you thing, not a them
right,
thing.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. I don't.
No offense.
I don't.
Not
right.
trying to be rude.
I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna. I'm just right now. I'm just kind of. It's a new time.
Are you yelling?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Did you have a lot of caffeine?
No, I have to talk loud to keep up with you because Ben always tells me your voice spikes.
I'm staying a little further from the microphone, babe.
I can think of so many different scenarios that are too personal, like I can't mention them because people could maybe connect the dots. But thinking about just in the general terms, right? When somebody says, let's say they got a new car and they're like, man, I'm so blessed that I got this or that car. If I'm going to be completely honest and vulnerable, sometimes in my own heart, me even judging the fact that they're calling it a blessing is rooted sometimes in my own envy. Mm-hmm. So all I'm really trying to say is, let's first ask the question, what is a blessing, right? So you're going to tell us what God is saying is a blessing.
Well, not necessarily what is a blessing, but what blessed means.
Sure.
Like, in what ways are we blessed?
What blessed means. But I think what will happen, my guess is, by the time we're through this, is many of these things that people would say are a blessing, if we were to examine them, they are, right? If somebody gets a big paycheck, that is a blessing. If somebody...
Yeah, like we have a house, great house. It is a blessing.
What becomes more of the question is our own heart check on where were we ever invited in to make it a comparison? Because this is an area I struggle with the most. I always am comparing myself, right? Like it could even be my work, right? There's times where it's like I look at what we have done as far as doers, and I look at the reward in a physical sense, and I feel like, oh my gosh, like this guy over here, it seems like he hands out a ham sandwich and he gets all kinds of recognition for it. Where
that's a heart issue, yeah.
Right. So that's what I mean. I think inside of this, the bigger challenge, at least for me personally, is going to be of course, a lot of these things probably are a blessing. It's going to have to do with your starting point. You know what I mean?
Is there a difference between things being a blessing and you being blessed?
Probably, yes. And
babe, like me, I overthink things. Or maybe I don't overthink things. I just really think about things. I mean, I remember like last year when Roman or I guess it was in 2019 now, holy moly. When Roman got in his accident. And I remember thinking, okay, like we could have just lost our son. And I remember getting to the scene and him being alive and being like, oh, like God, thank you, God. Like you're so good. And then I was instantly smacked with, would that be my response if we showed up to the scene and he wasn't still with us?
I remember that.
So it's like, I just feel like
so vividly, and I remember your struggle with that.
Because I felt like, oh my gosh, we're so blessed.
I remember you even feeling some days guilty of celebrating because you know so many people that wasn't their scene.
That wasn't their outcome.
Their son was gone. So how do you say and celebrate what felt like a blessing without making somebody else not feel blessed? And that's what I mean is, all right, so maybe as we dig into this, what it's really going to be is maybe more of a faith thing. Like say the circumstances were different in that. Would we have been able to believe that there was a blessing inside of even that?
Yes, and like, would you be able to still say God is good? I'm blessed in the midst of all of that. Yeah. You know,
this is a goodie. Wow, good one, babe.
How about this? So I could just read.
You're really good at reading
the Beatitudes.
They're long.
Well, we'll just do the blessed are the parts,
okay,
not the whole like Sermon on the Mount, the whole shebang. I can just read it, and then we can just pick a couple that stand out to us. Do you want to do that?
Let's do it.
Because I think if we tried to unpack all of them, that might be a little bit crazy, right? So, okay, I'm going to pull it up quick. Are you ready for this, babe?
I'm ready.
All right.
It's one of my yes, I love this.
Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. So,
not many of those that you would read would you feel as if though you were blessed for them, right?
Yeah. Ugh.
So then what is he saying? What is Jesus telling us here?
That our blessing has, to me, when I read this, the first thing that comes to my mind is that our blessings have more to do with what we receive from God, completely non-physical, but in the spirit.
And in the heavenly
and in
sense.
What's to come. Like those are true marks of blessed. Like they're very clear. Like it says, like you're blessed if this. So blessed are those who mourn. I mean, would I walk around and be like, because like the last few years have been really challenging, really difficult. And there's many times where I have felt frustrated or sad or maybe even betrayed by God or people or whatever. And is my posture that I'm blessed?
Is it?
Because I'm mourning? Not always, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, and I think that's...
because I do think, and I, like you, maybe it's our culture, but I feel like a lot of times our blessings, we consider blessings gain, whether that is financial gain or health gain, healing.
It's a gift.
Or, something that has a good outcome in our minds is usually what we would consider blessed. Whereas this is straight up saying, like, if you mourn, if you're merciful, if you're pure in heart, if you're a peacemaker, like those are the things that make you actually blessed.
Yeah. This one is deep because on a very simple sense, like when I look at the Beatitudes, what I think of right away is God showing us how we are blessed in our dependency on him, right? All of these scenarios put us in a place where we're like, it's a blessing for the mourner because they know their comfort is coming from him. They know that the days of this home will go away and the hope for eternity in paradise with God is coming. And that's where the real fruits are. So for the person that's throwing around this is a blessing, what's hard, you and I have lived this out.
Well, it's just limited.
Well,
let's not say, I'm not saying it's bad.
Yeah.
I'm not saying if like this month we get an extra paycheck because of my business, that that is a blessing to us because it helps to provide for us. It helps us to be able to give more. But it's a very limited view.
Okay, let's take the
on
paycheck.
blessing.
Let's take a paycheck, for example.
Yeah.
It's a blessing that's coming in the form of money. Mm-hmm. So what is it that's actually able to fix our problem? Money. Would God want us to have a more dependency on money or a more dependency on him?
Absolutely him.
Right. So that's what I mean is like sometimes these things get to, this is where.
This is like welcome to the brain of the Rogalskis.
Right, that's where Jesus flips everything upside down. Like if you look at everything that Jesus did, that's what it was. Is this like it's this meeting culture where it's at, and then saying it's all backwards when you really think of it, because you're trying to live in the comfort of this home because this is your right now reality. Well, he's saying outside of time is this eternal thing, and that our eyes are always supposed to be fixed on heaven and all this type of stuff. So it's like, it becomes this weird backwards where like we work every day for the people of Haiti and for poverty and like the homeless of our community. Like that's where our heart aches is, to meet those physical needs. As those people are meeting those physical or are receiving those physical needs, that is an immediate blessing to their right now situation. But in their poverty, in their depravity, are prayers that they are uttering to a God who is capable of fixing bigger things that are much deeper than maybe the prayers of a person that's got most of his needs met. This has always been that weird realm of living here versus living in Haiti for us. It's not like the world's changed. It's just our situations have changed.
Yeah, the focus.
When you're living in a place where you can't physically buy your way out of the trouble, it makes you that much more dependent on God. So it's like it becomes this really weird role reversal, because on one sense, you don't want to steal anyone's sucker as they're like giving God gratitude and thanks for the things that they have. Right. But if it's those things that they're becoming more dependent on or needy of,
let's say if those things are we are, let's just include us, not they are. We are. We as a whole.
What we're actually doing is getting ourselves farther removed from the God that we really need. If we constantly are like, I'm only being blessed if I receive. I'm only being blessed if I receive. I'm only being blessed if my bills are being paid, all types of stuff. It makes us more dependent on money. It makes us more dependent on those things than it does being like, wow, really in this hard season, the toughest season of our lives, it's forced me to need God more. You go 2 years back, we were in a rhythm. I was in a rhythm where
things were going real well.
2019 was our best year on paper. On paper. Like if you were to look at 2019 versus 2020 and 2021 on paper, that was our best year. But it was also my worst year spiritually. As far as my dependency on God, my being on my knees before God, my walking in like this understanding of how big and powerful, like the fear of the Lord part, was probably a weaker season. Where now it's like, whoa, like my survival, our survival, the organizations, all this type of stuff is dependent on God. We can't. So I think
it's just such a tricky thing, isn't it? Right. Because I'm not in any way saying that.
Well, pick it apart for me. Let's start with the first one. He says the poor in spirit, right? Or you could just use the word poor, really honestly, in that. You've spent a lot of time around the poor. Where are the poor richer than you? Being a person.
Well, what does that really mean, though? Poor in spirit. I've heard sermons on this before, and I feel like we've chewed on this before.
It is, or we have.
Or is that too much to get into right now?
No, the poor in spirit in this part is actually very, very relevant to your topic today. It's a person that is in a comparison world, feeling like they are not being heard by God because they don't have as much as the other people. So there's like. They're walking around in a woe is me situation of like, look at that guy, look at how they are blessed, look at that. But what it's doing is it's resulting them to be dependent on God. Like they're saying, God, like I can't feed my child today apart from you. I can't XYZ. Like they're being blessed for their reward is because it wasn't in the material things or the. Yeah. So it. So anyways, yeah.
It's a lot to pick apart, and it's I think there's sometimes things where you're not going to necessarily come to like a definitive answer, right? It's not like there's this is what it like. This means this always, right? It's just me letting you, and apparently now anyone else that's listening, into like some of my thoughts and just the things that because I obviously a paycheck or a team growth, like right now, like we could take Upstream. It's not a business. That's obviously a nonprofit organization. And, for several years, pretty much since the inception, it was you and me was the team, right?
Yeah.
Well, then, we got some insanely amazing volunteers that we would literally probably die without. And that was a huge blessing. And then now we have Ben on staff, which is another huge blessing, right? And that is gain, right? So I could be looking at my own situation and be like, oh my gosh, we're so blessed that we now have Ben to carry this burden. I think what I'm trying to like wrestle through is, let's say, there's some people, we'll just talk business. We'll just say like the business that I'm in, because this is also new to me, right? Like network marketing is just like a new thing, something I never thought that I would do, always said I would never do. And here I am. And so it's one of those things where it's like, in this first year, the company's had explosive growth, right? So people are saying a lot, like you're just hearing it a lot, like God's blessed this, and I came from over here and now I'm over here and I'm feeling crazy blessed and blah, 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 blah. And that's great. I'm not discounting that in any way, but it's led me to this place where I'm wrestling through, okay, what if for me, I stay and I do great in sales and that's fine, but my team never grows to 100, 500, 1,000, 10,000, like some of these people. Am I still blessed? Do I, and maybe it's less about the gain or the physical, the tangible, and more about my heart posture. And am I content if my team stays 10 people forever? Am I content if, my paycheck never gets bigger? Am I like, and so I think that's maybe what I'm wrestling through more than like, is this a blessing? Is that not a blessing? But more so like, what is my heart posture?
Yeah.
No matter what it looks like. And I'm going to sneeze. COVID.
Go ahead and sneeze.
Is not fully left me.
Bless you.
Sorry, guys.
I'm going to give you my quick definition of blessing from the way I understand it from God. And this is going to be a collection of thought, but simple.
Okay.
First of all, like, okay, when I think of blessing, I think about who the blessing is coming from God. What is it that God would want to give me? What is it that God wants most from me? God wants me to know him more each and every day.
Yes,
right?
like he cares about that far more than he cares about what's in our bank, what's in our fridge.
Right. So when I toss around
closet.
the word blessing, I got to ask myself, by whose definition is blessing? If it's God's definition, we're trying to find God's definition of blessing. We've got to ask, what thing is happening that's bringing us and drawing us closer to him? Can receiving $1 million draw us closer to him? Absolutely. If our gratitude, thankfulness, the way we use that as a way to be a blessing to the world and like further the kingdom, all that type of stuff, yes. But at least in my own life, in trial and error, unfortunately, it tends to be in tougher places, in trying times, that I am drawn into being closer to God. This is why sometimes I think some of these things can feel backwards. Like we are blessed. For me, I guess the simplicity would be, we could label anything blessed if it truly is drawing us closer to God, both in relationship, in wanting to exercise our faith, in wanting to follow his commands.
Disciple others.
Abraham's faith was accredited to him, blessed to be a blessing, meaning God was only giving to Abraham all of the children, all the nations of Israel, because he believed that through blessing him, it would be a blessing to the rest of the world. Like they would hold on to that coveted promise. They would carry the message forward. So for me, I think if this was just like an on the street conversation, somebody said, "Hey, what is it to be blessed? Blessed by God for me is whatever you can account that draws you closer to him. The loss of a child can be a blessing if it's what saves a family, draws them closer to God, makes them reach out and help other families that are losing children, be a part of networking groups that comforts people in their trials.
Here's an example of that. So
that's blessing from God's standpoint.
Our dear friends.
Your version of blessing might be material things. Like
Yeah. So like our dear friends, Matt and Sherry, just lost their son,
Yes.
Justin. And
Yeah.
like horrible. I mean, horrible, absolutely horrific. Every parent's worst nightmare. And yet, so like, Sherry, they're both so dear to me, but Sherry's so dear to my heart. And I've been listening to her music for years. Like she has such a heart for worship, such a heart for music.
Such a heart for the Lord.
Yeah, like just such a beautiful, beautiful woman. And she wrote a song within a few days of Justin passing away. And shared it at his funeral. And, obviously we weren't able to be at the funeral. And she shared it with me and has now like shared it publicly. And it is like one of the most beautiful, comforting songs I've ever heard. And it's coming out of the worst pain that a mother could ever walk through. And I even told her, like, when she shared it with me, I was just like, what? Like, because I've always, I've always just loved her. I've always loved what God's doing through her. And like every time she sends me something, I'm like, I just have such affection for her. But yet when she sent me this song and I'm knowing like the agony she must be feeling that she decided to turn to Jesus and let him give her a song that now is going to bring so much comfort to so many people.
Right, exactly.
And like she's blessed because she's mourning. Like that is a physical, tangible, like example. Like she's being comforted.
Yeah.
And now she's also taking that and using that to comfort other people.
Because of why though? That's where God's description of each of us, as independent as we feel, we are a part of a body. So the blessing sometimes is not even just for like you. Yeah. It might feel like she's being crushed, but a true follower of Christ is saying, I'm willing to embrace this crushing just as Christ himself was for the benefit of others. Jesus wanted nothing more than for the cup to be passed from him.
Right.
He sweat beads of blood in the garden praying, God, take this cup from me, but your will be done and not mine. If crushing me will save millions, it's okay. So it's like, that's a hard thing, but that's the Christian life. That's the Christian life.
But I feel like sometimes in Christianity, we take that and we're good with it. Right? Like we're like, okay, yeah, like God, use this, like this sucks, but use this for your glory, use this for the kingdom. But what about gain? What about excess? Well, do we look at it like, if all of a sudden now my paycheck increased and I'm like, woo, God bless me. Yeah. And I'm like, sweet, that means I can get this and I can get this and I can get this and this is going to be better. And maybe it's not anything bad. I'm not even saying anything bad, like more groceries. Maybe this month we actually don't eat beans more often.
A vacation.
Yeah. Or, our kids get new shoes more than once every 2 years, whatever it is. Like, do I look at when God brings in an increase from like society standpoints, do I look at that as he is giving this to me, yes, but with responsibility. Like if he's giving me a team of 10 or he's giving me a team of 10,000, there's responsibility that comes with it, right? And if he's giving me a paycheck of 500 or he's giving me a paycheck of 50,000, which hasn't happened, don't worry guys. Either way, I should be asking myself, why?
Yes.
Like, because if it's only for us, and like, this is convicting, honestly, for me, because, we've been on a ministry budget for a long time with a huge family. And so for me, I'm not going to lie. Like when I'm starting to get paychecks, I'm like, oh my gosh, babe, like, yes, we can pay the kids' braces payments, but this means maybe I can get more, makeup or clothes or whatever. I might think of those things more before I'm thinking, hey, this means
we could take care of another kid.
Right. Yeah. Like a non-Rogelski. Yeah.
Or another
like
missionary.
Or adopt again.
Give more to the church or
whatever. Yeah. Like what? And so I feel like if anything, what I've been kind of picking through and thinking about and over and bringing you into the conversation is that really it comes down to that the blessing, whatever it is, whether it's gain in the physical or gain in the spiritual, whatever it is, that really what matters is like the heart behind it. The heart, like what you're going to do with it. And also Are we content with or without it?
With or without, yeah. Can you be content in all things? All right, so there's a lot to unpack right there, but I want to ask you a simple question real quick. This is not a trick question.
Okay.
You've lived enough life experiences that don't even overthink it. Just very simply, can you become rich and famous and it be a blessing?
Absolutely.
Can you become rich and famous and it not be a blessing?
Absolutely.
For what reasons?
I think it all comes down to,
Let's not even say what you do with it.
the heart.
Yep.
It comes down to the heart. And I think, we've even wrestled with this a little bit with, excuse me, with, Calista and Worthy and their crazy reach.
Mm-hmm.
It's like all of a sudden you go from Calista having 70 followers on TikTok to this overnight insanity where they have nearly 2 million followers. We're getting messages from around the world. They're on TV all the time. And with it has come things that we've never had to deal with before in our family. Like, what do certain things look like? And there's been a couple times where there's been tension where you're like,
all right, so with God in focus, what would make that be a blessing? So all of this new stuff,
yes,
TikTok and Instagram, all types of stuff, fame, riches, whatever, and this could be our kids, anybody else. What makes that be qualified a blessing through God's lens first?
Well, in my thought process, it would be people getting a glimpse into our life and seeing that we love Jesus. Mm-hmm. And being like, whoa, like, hopefully these people look different. Mm-hmm. Hopefully these people are, like, there's something that
not different and better, just different, meaning
different,
like, focus. Yep.
Yeah, like these
Christ
people are trying.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Or like, more people learning about our ministry, because that's more important to all of us than, some silly TikTok videos. I mean, TikTok videos are a platform. Instagram followers are a platform, but they're not, they're not the most important thing. Right. And so, it's just.
Okay. So what could make it be not a blessing?
Oh yeah. I mean, what could make it not a blessing is if it's causing a lot of strife and stress and, pressure, and it's changing your attitude and it's making you full of pride, or it's making you, untouchable. I mean, there's people that have, less Instagram followers than Worthy right now and Calista that you couldn't even get the time of day to talk to them.
Sure.
Right? So if all of a sudden, and like, obviously, like at some point, like you just don't have time to message everybody. Yeah. But even with the insane onslaught of messages, I try my hardest to make time for people. Yeah. Like I just got them, just this week, I've gotten several messages from complete strangers. A lot of their following is young girls, middle school girls. And I've gotten several messages from them that I think could easily get ignored because people just don't pay attention to their Instagram, right? So with this blessing of having a platform is also now this responsibility, because you have these girls who are literally messaging you and saying, hey, I'm really struggling at my home right now. Mm-hmm. This is what's happening. Like, will you pray for me? Right. Or I've had this one girl who I've loved talking with who is like, I'm really struggling in my faith. And like just being able to like give her time and say like, hey, like check out this scripture, check out this worship song. Here's my playlist, like just building relationships with people. Like I just don't see. And I think it all comes down to what is the heart and saying, God, why? Okay. Right? Why is this happening? Why is this increase in the world standpoints? Because people would love to have 100 and some thousand followers or almost 2 million followers. But if it's just to give Calista and Worthy a paycheck, well, that's cool. They can pay their bills. Right. But what is the kingdom aspect of it? You asked me, you said it was a simple question, but that wasn't really a simple question.
Well, it was simple. It was no, you took it more of like what you do with the blessing. Okay. Which is awesome. But if it's through God's lens, what you do with the blessing is huge, but it's a gift. He gives it to you. I mean, it's between you and the Holy Spirit on how that all kind of fleshes out. But what if what it is that we're praying for and asking for becomes a blessing that actually takes us away from God?
Then it's no good, no dice.
You and I have lived long enough that we've seen money and fame change people. Well, if it changes a person and they become uptight and more closed up, that's bad for the world. But what about between them and God if now their dependency becomes on that paycheck, that lifestyle? Yeah. Imagine meeting somebody that's in prayer saying, God, bring me to the height of my career. Bring me to the height of my profession and bless me with wealth because, I will do X, Y, Z with that gift. And he gets there, and for a season he has it, and it's taken away. And that causes him to harden his heart towards God and curse God. Imagine Job's story in reverse. Instead of Job holding on, because Job was a blessed man, had all things were taken away from him. The story is that he was able to persevere through that, even though everybody was giving him counsel to curse God and die and to find the sin in it. He's saying, I'm without sin, and it was restored. But there are many people that what they are asking for and then they receive as a blessing is actually causing them to be more dependent on the blessing than the blesser, the giver. Yeah. So for me, I think there's layers, right? I think there's layers. And the layer that we started off with and we can return to is how do we treat blessing as far as thinking about our fellowship with others, right? Because I want to be cautious on how I say I'm being blessed so that I don't make somebody else feel like they're not being blessed. Because God does not guarantee that blessing shows up in physical form. Right. Right?
Well, we could read these again.
Yes.
These Beatitudes.
Okay.
Blessed are the poor in spirit.
Yep.
Why?
Draws them closer to God.
Yep. Because theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you if you mourn. Why?
Because God's going to be your comforter.
Blessed are the meek. Because they're going to inherit the earth. What does that even mean? We'll have to unpack that another day. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Because they'll be filled.
That's what God wants most from his children is righteousness, which it gets to be hard.
It's a whole other topic for a whole other day too. Blessed are the merciful. Why? They're shown mercy. Right? Blessed are the pure in heart. Because they'll see God. Blessed are the peacemakers. Because they'll be called children of God. Blessed are you if you're persecuted because of righteousness. Yours is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when you are insulted because of God.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a phenomenal topic, and.
Yeah, and I'm not even saying, I wasn't even necessarily thinking, coming into this that we're going to, figure it out.
No, I know.
For
this
me,
is just a fun conversation to talk about.
Yeah, I just think for me, it's one of those things that I do need to stay in check about.
Yeah.
To be quite honest, because I can look at things and just like you said, and I think many people struggle with comparison. Mm-hmm. And, and I think some of it is this responsibility and this feeling that I have now that I have a team with me that are doing this with me, that I don't want them to feel that with me. Oh my gosh, what? Sami was on top in sales again? I'm showing up. It's not happening for me. And here she is. She's celebrating. She's super blessed. And I apparently am not. Does that mean that I should not give thanks for what is being done and what is good? No, but it also means that would I still give thanks if I didn't hit my goals? Mm-hmm. Would I still give thanks if I didn't ever grow in this? Yeah. Would I still give thanks if God was just kidding, we're not doing that, take that away? Would I still be? And honestly, it's a convicting thing for me because, we're sitting in Texas, USA right now. And according to our plans, we're supposed to be living in Haiti. And in our minds, that was living our best life, right? And I've honestly really struggled with it. I've really struggled with God, whoa. We really thought that you were leading us in this way, and this is what we're supposed to be doing. And now here we are, and we're not in Haiti. 2, we're in a totally new state. 3, I'm doing a business and trying to figure out what that even looks like, even though we know it was a God-like answer because of specific prayers we were praying, but it does not fit with our plan. Am I okay with that? And what does that look like? And am I okay with this being the plan now, but not in 6 months?
Yeah.
You know, like
It's so hard because both matter, right? I mean, we're alive for a long time.
Mhm.
This is not our home as far as eternal destination, but it's our home for a long time.
Yeah.
So
God willing.
so the things that happen here seem to matter. So it's like when Solomon in Ecclesiastes says, it's all meaningless. It's here one day and gone the next. Is not to be like a Debbie Downer, but it's also it's just to keep it all in a balance to say, hey, guess what? So we just talked about all the physical things, living in Haiti, being there, adopting kids there, whatever it is now, we're in Texas, all that type of stuff. God is saying, those are things that matter for this world. But as far as eternity goes, do you know me more today?
Right.
Are you closer to me today? Do you feel are you more dependent on me today than the day that you left to go there? And some days that's because harder.
That is the truest blessing.
It really is. It really is to be known by God and to know Him is the greatest blessing. So if you're in prayer and God blesses you with a big paycheck and it brings you personally to a place, it's like, man, God, thank you for seeing me. Thanks for knowing our needs.
And what do I do with
Thanks
this?
for meeting it. And exactly. Well, that's the big thing. And that's what's hard about America. America, it's so easy to grade it on the curve. You and I are sitting here today, or at least I am. I speak for myself. And I feel like we have an abundance.
Yeah, we do.
We have an abundance. And some of the stress and pressure that I even put on myself and on God is because I could be living even simpler yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I said, those become personal convictions. Those aren't necessarily, I don't believe, salvation issues, but in the context of blessing, what your God in heaven, the one that is if you're going to use the word blessing, it's because you're saying it came from God. God is going to give gifts to his children that don't spoil them and make them naughty, rotten little kids that don't share with people. He's going to spoil the children that he knows are going to do well with it. Now, that doesn't just mean in physical things. It can mean in anything. Because what God is most concerned with, the heart of God, is trying to get as many people in the world, at all times of the world, back to him. He doesn't want to see people spend eternity separated from him. So the way he does that, since Christ released the Holy Spirit into the world upon his death, like the seed that went into the ground, is he's given all of us the opportunity to help people get there. We can help them get there with their money, right? Like I wrote a message the other day that basically I was saying mission some days feels very synonymous with money, meaning today I got a message on how hungry people are in Haiti and this, that, and the other thing. And I can affect those prayers by how much money is in the bank account. So some days it feels like I can only bless to the point of what I have. And like I said, that gets to be hard. But I think
it's such a
the real reality. The real reality is we are living in a country that a good portion of us just don't understand. As the internet grows and as social media grows, we're becoming more and more aware of the bigger world around us. But the hardest part is once you start traveling outside the United States, you start realizing we are beyond wealthy. Like we are, as far as the world's assets go and how they're distributed amongst the world, we have a ton. Mm-hmm. And I think from God's perspective, as we're calling things blessings, he's saying, well, what are you doing with it? Like you're getting excited and celebrating this blessing, but it's pushing you away from me and away from my heart for others and making it more about you and helping you than it is the world. And that's where it gets really hard for me. And I don't want to be overly tough on anybody or even myself. Yeah. But the reality is while we're sitting around praying to God, he's listening to the prayers of the world. And I think when we receive something like, wow, what a blessing it is to have a new iPhone, I'm going to use this thing to reach as many people for God with it as I can. I'm going to try to stay in communication with as many people as I can to encourage them. I'm going to try to, use it to Venmo missionaries money fast or whatever, there's a portion of that blessing that I think really can even be a part of what God would consider a blessing because it's being used for what is on his heart, growing the kingdom, taking care of his children, reaching out, blah, blah, blah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a solid goodie. So what does it mean to be blessed, babe?
Well, I mean, I think it really just comes down to like our posture towards God, with or without, not with or without God, with or without things, with or without people, with or without anything. Like what it really means to be blessed is, do I know God more today than I did yesterday? Do I trust God more today than I did yesterday? Am I spending more time today than I did yesterday making sure that people know who he is? And I think sometimes, like, I mean, I feel like we really do try to live purposefully in our lives. But I look at my own life and I think, man, when's the last time I told somebody like about Jesus?
Yeah.
Maybe yes, with my actions, with how I treat them, whatever. But I mean, like, legitimately, like, somebody could be destined for hell, and I'm more worried about like adding to my team. Not that adding to my team is bad, but you know what I mean? Like, just it's a convicting thing to really look at your life and say, okay, let's not grade on the curve, because if we grade on the curve, maybe we're doing more for the kingdom than, the guy 10 blocks over.
Yeah.
But if we're comparing to what God has for us,
if you were to ask me to put a picture, go ahead.
I'm not saying that works is the most important thing. That's like a whole nother topic for another day, which we're actually going to talk about later this month, babe.
Nice.
So I haven't even told you this, but we decided we're going to talk. Oh, maybe I did tell you this about Bible characters. Yeah. So like, next week, we're talking about Esther. The week after, we're talking about Peter. The week after that, we're talking about Jonah. And the week after...
Tune in, folks. That's
then
the
week after that, we're going to be talking about Martha and Mary.
Nice.
So...
All right, well, I'm just going to end at least my portion on this. And I've got a visual while I'm listening to you and as you're talking, and I'm just thinking about blessed. I have the privilege of standing before our churches in Haiti. And there's always this very bizarre moment that happens every single time as I look out into that audience. And it's the physical reality that out in front of me is the physically poorest amongst the world. This is Cité Soleil, Haiti, the slum of all slums, Mother Teresa called it. And then something always switches where I'm like, these are the most blessed people in the world. They're the richest spiritually people in the world that I know. And I think the reason why that is because their physical poverty has put them in a place of knowing God at a deeper level than I've ever known him. Like their day-to-day dependency on something from my standpoint, something supernatural, keeping them going and maintaining hope and joy far surpasses the collection, the collection of all of my bad days. Like it literally blows my mind. And to know that that is a more commonplace on this earth. What you're seeing in that moment as you and I are in that church in Haiti and hundreds of people around us, that place is more common amongst the earth than my neighborhood. My neighborhood is actually the odd place in the world. So who is blessed in that moment? Me standing on the stage or them in the audience? From God's perspective, just as I held that child at Mother Teresa's, I believe God says they are. They are more blessed than I am. Oof. Because they know him more. They depend on him. My back healing was the same exact way.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story for a different day.
Yeah, totally different story, different day. But yes, blessing. You got to forgive people for using it in silly ways, including myself.
No, baby. It's not a forgiveness thing. This is not I saw somebody do it and I'm irritated by it. Or I saw it and I'm like,
what is blessed? Yeah.
What is blessed? Because I think the same things. I look around in my house and all this stuff and I'm like, man, I feel so grateful and so blessed. And it just made me start thinking, what does that mean? Like, what does that really, really mean? And obviously it's something we've wrestled with for a long time. Just I think because of the nature of our work and what we've seen in the world. But, I think it's a good thing to chew on and to think about.
Yeah.
Good motive check for me, a good heart check for me.
For me as well, because sometimes I'm not as gracious or cautious with my words as you are. I don't, this is not I'm not thinking of a situation either. It really is very personal and reflective. And I'm looking up at your hearts as we've gotten kids sponsored this week, and that blesses me.
Yeah.
Those things bless me. So anyways, yeah.
Yeah. Oof.
Blessed to be a blessing.
All right. We're chopping it up with Esther next.
That right there is a beautiful slogan too.
Yeah.
Blessed to be a blessing.
Yeah, that's how you've signed your emails for years.
Yeah. Amen.